Hey, it's Ray at the Angry Mushroom Emporium Guitar Shop. Today we're going to be working on the Harmony Acoustic guitar. It belongs to one of the friends that we go out to dinner with. He was telling me that he's got this old guitar that he's had for a while, but it's hard to play. We finally got together and he showed it to me and I found what's wrong with it. And it's a really cool guitar, so let's see how we can get this thing playing again. I love this vintage case. It's got like kind of this gray color. It's got this cool pick guard with little swirls. It's actually a little, ooh, that's new. Here we go. We gotta glue that back on. So we'll scrape off the old glue and get that glued back on. I didn't notice this. Okay. First thing we notice is he's got nylon strings on a steel string guitar. So we'll get that fixed up for him. We'll check out the saddle and the saddle height. The neck is actually pretty straight. There might be a little bit of a hump here, but it's not bad. I love this mustache style saddle. It's got some pretty nice binding. But, some of this is cracking at the end. I'm not even going to touch that. It's just old. It's probably from the 60s. But check out that headstock, too. Yeah, this is a beautiful Harmony guitar. Ooh, Stairway to Heaven. Everybody needs to know that one. Yeah, let's go ahead and get these strings off of here. I'm going to try to read this number. 423. Does that say GH? This has this adjustable bridge. This doesn't transfer the energy of the sound that well. I mean, we'll get this thing playing again. But this design from back then, you might even read about it with these Harmony guitars. That the energy from the string vibrating down is only touching on these 2 points, on this screw and this screw. So that's not a lot of efficient energy. You want all the strings sitting hard on the saddle and then on the top of the body to get a good tone. It might even be good to make a proper saddle, but I'm not going to do that because I'm just going to leave it original. But that's kind of what happens with these guitars. You wonder how come it doesn't sound that great? Because it's not getting a lot of energy here. Now we'll get this truss rod cover off. There's little tiny screws. Put your fingers around the screw so you don't slip. And this truss rod, yeah, a little hex nut. So when we get this all cleaned up, when it comes time to adjust it, you need to have a little socket on there instead of an Allen wrench. So I want to go ahead and check this neck for fret leveling. And then, you do this, but the frets are kind of in the way. And they say, hey, you should go ahead and buy one of those notched ones. But I'm going to make my own. And I went ahead and I got this ruler. It was a 36-inch metal ruler. I cut it in half because I'm going to make 2 of them. One for acoustics and then one for Strat scales because I work on a lot of Strats. So the distances will be a little different. Or I could just use the same one and notch it on one side for acoustics and then on the other side for Strats. And they're kind of expensive. And I just want to start getting this stuff done instead of waiting for it to come in the mail. So I just mark with a Sharpie all the frets on this acoustic guitar. First I scored it with a jeweler's file right where it's going to go. And then I just use a hacksaw and cut down a little farther on each one. Then I have this little thinner file Make that a little wider. Good. And let's check it. So now we check it. It has a little bit of play, but that's fine because the idea is once you put this straight edge along the wood, then you can see whether or not the wood is high or not. That's where you adjust the truss rod so it's perfectly flat, and then we can level and crown the frets after. So let's go ahead and notch the rest of these, and we'll have an acoustic version ready. Finally got all of these notched. Might be able to see it from the video. You can see there's gap right in here. It's touching here and then a gap here, gap here. So what I can do is tighten the truss rod. The end of the neck where the tuners are goes down, and this will come up slightly to flatten the neck, and then we'll be fairly level. So I have this 6.5 millimeter socket, fits right on there. Yeah, just one little tweak. I already tweaked it a little bit, but I don't want to go too much farther. We just wanted to pull down that little sliver of gap. And let's look at it. So it's a lot flatter. This is good. Now we're going to rock the frets. What this does is you go between 3 frets to see which one's is feeling a little high. Like right here, it's a little high. So I mark it with a Sharpie. And I go through. And the reason you want to do this is if this fret is higher than this one, and you play a note here, it could buzz up here because it's higher. So we want to go through and get everybody the same height. The entire fret needs a little work. These guys are okay. Yeah, it's a little high here. Try not to draw on the wood. There we go. That way I don't screw up that when I start in with this. Now the spray mount is removable, but it'll keep it on there from sliding off. And I just do long even strokes until all the Sharpie marks are gone. So I rocked them all, and they're all very level. Now we got to go through and round the tops. So we just this fret is flat on the top from filing them down. Now we're gonna hit the corners and roll over so we can round the top or crown it. Doesn't take much, but it's enough to give it a round top. That way when you fret the string, it sits right on the peak of the fret. A little sliver of silver, it gets thinner and thinner as you round off those edges. And I hit it with medium grit to smooth out those scratches. And I polish it with like some 1500 to shine it up. And then some Scotch-Brite for the final polish. Take off this stuff and you clean up around it. nice crown to fret. And now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more to go. We'll take this little bridge and I'm going to back the screws off so it's flush with the bottom. We'll have it at a low setting first. Pop that in. Then we'll get a set of strings and start wheeling them on there. Okay, I got my, where do you even see this label? D'Addario EJ16-12P. That's a medium gauge for acoustic. I like these strings a lot. They're color coded too on the ball. Little guide tells you which was which. They spool them up 2 and 2 and 2. So the first string is the silver ball. Ever since I was a young boy, he played the silver ball. From Soho down to Brighton, he must have played them all. Ain't seen nothing like him in any amusement hall. I bend it just slightly. So when you push it down, the thing will slide up and get caught in there, in the hole. So you want to give it just a little bit of a curve. So I've got the silver one, slightly bent. Put it down. And give it a good push. B string purple. Just a little bit of a bend. I don't want to kink, but I just want to bend it. And the last two, the E and the A string. The A is red and the E is brass. The little groove is facing forward. Then I'll connect them later. Like I'm gonna wait a while. I mean next. Or that's real procrastination. Yeah, I'll put these strings on someday. Okay. So we put it in right here. Put it in. Maybe on the thinner strings, give it 2.5. 1, 2.5. And then I start winding it on. So over and under. Over one more time, and then the rest is under. Then I pull this up, so it's always going to travel under. And there we go. And then we'll get those others tuned in and mess around with the action here in a minute. So now we're going to adjust this truss rod so the clearance so we have some relief around the middle of the neck. Relief means you have a slight bow which gives the string room to vibrate. This one's a little high, so the way to check it is you put a capo on the first fret. Well, you tune it up to pitch, and I have it clamped in the vise with a soft carpet, not squeezed super tight, just enough to hold it in the playing position. You want it in the playing position so gravity doesn't pull the strings down and give you a false reading on your measurements. This is something I learned in a book about guitar fixing. So first fret, capo, then you hold down the last fret with your finger. And then you measure at the 7th fret. This is a 0.10. I'm going with that measurement. And you measure in here, and there's a little bit of clearance. It's not bad on the E string, but it's still on the low E. But on the high E, it's a big distance. So I'm going to tighten the truss rod slightly, which will pull this side of the neck down and reduce that gap. And the way to do that is to loosen up the strings and then tighten the nut. So I'm going to loosen the strings. And this fits. I'm just going to give it like a quarter turn. Not too much, because it wasn't that far off on the E. So I tighten that slightly. Just a bit. Then we put all the strings back and tune it back up again. Okay, now we'll get this fine-tuned back to pitch. That's also a good reason to hang it in playing position. You can kind of give it a test drive. Okay, let's capo it and measure it. I should have left this open. 10. And I press down here. That's good. I'm starting to get a little resistance, which is perfect. I'm not going to tighten it anymore. So that's a good setting. And now we got to check the height at the 12th fret on the acoustic. And it looks super high. So I took the capo off, and now the height at the 12th fret, which is right there. So I'm just going to go with millimeters, like 2 millimeters. This thing is it's about 4 millimeters. It really needs to come down to about here. And the way to do that, take some of this down, a millimeter or two off the bridge, because the saddle's all the way down now. We don't need to adjust it any higher. So I made this little board out of old carpet and MDF for doing the setups. I put a 2x4 that you can just clamp into the vise. And then we keep this one clean. We don't do any sawing or chipping on here. It's just for setups. And then you can lay the guitar down and not screw it up. So this was a handy addition. Also learned that from a book. So I keep talking about the books. This one here by Dan Erlewine. Well, he's like the StewMac guy. They invent tools great for guitar repair. And then this one by Brian Forbes shows you how to make your own tools and templates and jigs. So one of the chapters was the board, how to make the board. This neck rest, that came from the Brian Forbes book on guitar tool making. Just a couple of 2x4s glued together with a piece of cork cut with a little radius on it to rest the neck. And just stick that on there. This is free. You can turn and crank, and then this is ready to work on. So we gotta loosen up the strings so we can get that bridge out. Another thing I like about this workboard is I can clamp my camera holder easily to the edge. Okay, I got the strings loosened up. Even though these adjustment screws, we won't really need to raise the accent anymore. They're handy for lifting this bridge out of here. I loosened the strings up enough for clearance, and we're going to lift the bridge out. And there we go. Instead of cutting notches deeper into it, I'm going to just shave off the bottom slightly. I'm going to go ahead and pull these screws out, and then we should be able to slide this bridge out of here. Slide that saddle out. That's going to take a little more finesse. I'll put it in the vise and just tap it slightly and to pull this out of here. So I just stick it in the vise, and not a very heavy hammer, and just a hunk of wood. Without smashing the camera, I'm gonna go from this angle and just gently slide that saddle out of there. And as you get the vibration, now you get the picture. I should be able to pull that up. And now we can shave just a pencil width off. Okay, so now we got it down just to the red line. We're gonna pop it back in and see what the action looks like. We'll put it back in the slot. I'll make sure I get to the center. This is the base side. We'll pop these little screws in. So we won't even need these screws now. It's going to sit all the way flat to the bottom, which will give the strings more energy into the body. It'll give us a good tone. But I'll leave the screws on there so we don't lose them. Slot that in. We'll just snug those up so they don't rattle. This is where the long thumbnail comes in handy, just for a snug fit. I knew a guy who installed laser scanners, and he kept his fingernails long so he could do little tiny screws. Back when they were first doing laser scanning for grocery stores, he traveled around Southern California and installed laser scanners. He was a good guy. Okay, let's tune it up. I'm gonna put it back into playing position so we can measure. Okay, we got this lowered down as much as I dare. If we look over here, can we see at the bottom of the screen? Just right in here. If I go down any farther, we risk buzzing on the wood of the saddle. So we got it down a lot better than it was. The intonation is still good. And then now we'll glue on the pick guard, put the plate cover back on the truss rod, and play it some more. Time to glue this on. I cut myself a little piece of wood, just a smidge smaller, so when I can clamp it. I made it slightly smaller. It'll still press hard, but then I can catch the squeeze out and clean it up. Pick guard clamped on. In the early stages, I go along and hit the edge with a Q-tip to get the squeeze out that seeps out. By tomorrow, this thing will be ready to play. Okay, let's take these clamps off of here and tune this guitar up. Okay, the edges are really good on here. Remember what happened last time when I just got this cool pick guard tapped on it? It's actually this thing won't come off unless you leave it in the car and heat it up again. But I don't think they're going to do that. And now we'll get it tuned up. Alright, we got this old Harmony acoustic guitar done. Get the strings broken in slightly. I'll show you a difference. This is a Tama acoustic, and look at the thickness difference. This one has a deeper body, deeper dreadnought. This is a slightly thinner guitar, so it won't have as much bass response like this one does. It's a little more on the high side as far as the frequencies, but it sounds really nice as the strings still break in. And turn the chair so it doesn't squeak on the back. And that wraps it up for the fixing up the Harmony acoustic guitar. It was a lot of fun, and thanks for watching. And ready to deliver.